Hello and welcome. This is Fireworks. Now, in recent times, many national issues have taken on the character of a debate with many different shades. There are myriads of perspectives depending on who you're talking to. Today, we'll bring that debate before the National Assembly, where the debate is supposedly taking place in national interest. And I'll be taking on one of the principals of the National Assembly. I am Bukola Samuel Wemimo. Stay with us. We'll be right back. Thank you for staying tuned to Fireworks. Today I have with me the Deputy Senate Leader, Senator Bala Ibn Naala, representing Kebbi South. Thank you for your time on Fireworks.
Thank you very much.
The 8th National Assembly started on a challenging note, both at the lower chamber and at the upper chamber. How now has the Assembly resolved its leadership crisis?
Well, I think the best way to describe it is that parliaments all over the world have an inbuilt capacity to resolve whatever conflict that arises within it. And I think this has been demonstrated with the recital of what happens from the inauguration of the 8th National Assembly to where we are today. A lot of people forget so quickly that in politics, it's permanent interests that remains visible. And like it has always been said, no permanent friends, no permanent enemies, but permanent interests. And unfortunately, when the 8th National Assembly came, arising from the nature of the party that evolved as at the center to offer leadership to this country, and the characteristics of how it came about, those issues were reasonably expected at that time. If I may go further, is to say that the amalgamation of the various interests to form what is called the APC explain again that after getting power, those interests have to be politically defined within the structure of what is to form national government. We got a president that we elected with a vice president, but there are other areas where some people must show interest, either for their immediate for the protection of their immediate political interests or future political interests. And of course, the focus will normally be on the National Assembly, since you know that we have only 3 arms of government: the executive, judiciary, and the National Assembly. You cannot play politics with the judiciary.
So I ask, Deputy Leader, were those interests resolved with the creation of additional standing committees such that certain interests will be pacified?
Well, if you follow the recital like I have said, first the crisis started over who emerged as in the leadership of the 2 houses of the National Assembly.
True.
And fortunately for us, because we worked on the policy of full democratization of the APC government, of the APC as a party, sorry, which we exhibited when we went for the presidential primaries in Lagos, wherein people were freely allowed to vote the candidate of their choice, that saw the emergence of General Buhari as president. We who were stakeholders from the formative period of the APC insisted that if there was anything we did that gave the international community confidence that Nigeria is on a march to democratic governance, full democratic governance, was the exhibition of that internal party democracy in that Congress. So we felt that we must exhibit that at all levels of government.
So did you exhibit that at the National Assembly level,
we did.
at the upper chamber?
Of course we did.
If you did, why did you have crisis at the...
Yes, okay. Because certain people couldn't realize their interest following the same democratic process. And therefore, they must find another alternative means of creating the problem. But what was obvious to everyone who saw what happened at the inauguration of the 8th National Assembly was to see that it was a resolution of both members of the National Assembly and the House of Representatives, and the Senate to elect their leaders by themselves.
So we saw democracy at work.
Exactly, yes.
Now,
so, yes.
But certain interests were yet to be pacified, were yet to be covered.
Exactly.
So we saw the former Senate leader becoming a casualty in this democratic process and thereby resulting in the emergence of Senator Ahmed Lawan as the new Senate leader.
Well, like I have always said...
Was it still democracy at work,
yeah,
Senator Bala?
It was democracy at work, because the same number of people that brought the former leader into leadership felt at one stage or the other that they no more needed him to continue as a leader, which is normal. He himself will tell you, he's a Democrat, he knows that. And everyone who is versed in the politics of the parliament will understand the fact that the politics of the parliament is determined by the minute. And in some critical situations, it's even determined by the seconds. So you cannot reasonably predict what will evolve when you bring together former governors, former ministers, former captains of industries in one place. As
senators.
And as senators. And
by the way, you have survived the upheaval. Tell us how you did.
I wasn't affected in any of the upheaval. I was returned as a deputy Senate leader, to which I loyally decided to serve the leader as he then was, Senator Ondume. And I have maintained that kind of position. But there is one thing that I have always done in my life that is very difficult for you to drag me into problem. If you want to start creating problem and you do not involve me, then when you are solving the problem, I don't have any obligation to be part of that problem. So when this issue started, fortunately for me, I was even out of the country, so I didn't even know how it started and how it went. But one of the respected senators had the courtesy of telling me, well, we kept you out of it because we saw how close you are with the former leader and felt that it will not be in your own interest to get you involved into it.
Deputy Leader, while you have told us that democratic institutions were at play and democracy was at play in resolving some of the challenges that saw the emergence of the 8th National Assembly, and you've talked about some interests being determined by the second at the floor of the Senate. You haven't told us what those interests are.
Of course, there are political interests. People get involved in politics to protect their political interests. And irrespective of whether they are party leaders or they are party chairman or they are president or vice president, they all have individually what they perceive or prepare as their own political interests. And therefore, in the determination or protection of that interest...
Political interest.
Political interest.
Words are vague. Can you break it down?
Well, if, for example, somebody wants to be a president, for example, after maybe the current president has finished his 2 terms or whatever, he will want to be sure that he's in charge of the structure that will make it convenient for him to emerge as president. That is one interest. If, for example, somebody wants a National Assembly in which certain requests that affects the people he brought into the party to ensure its success will be protected, he will equally be interested in who become a minister or who become a Senate leader or who become whatever.
Yeah, the distinguished senator, perhaps I should help you out. Is it political interest that saw some senators who opposed the creation of additional standing committees become quiet when they were redeployed to other committees?
Well, at times it arises from misunderstanding of how the parliament is being run. You understand? The Constitution is superior to the rules of the Senate. And under the Constitution, the Senate and the House of Representatives has been given power to create such other committees that, which in its view, will serve the interests of the work which the two houses of the National Assembly are doing. And you will know that the rules of the Senate is a derivation from the Constitution. And there is no how a son can be older than his father. So for those who understand the ordinary principles of law, we say that the ground now is the Constitution. So if the Constitution says that the National Assembly can create such other committees.
Does the Constitution say so?
Yes, it did. Okay. It did. So you cannot come and rely on what is called the rules of the Senate and say that those things were not available. And in any case, once principal officers of any parliament are in place, it is their duty to determine the work of that assembly and then to determine how that work is going to be done. And in doing so, certain leverages are given to the presiding officers to tell at least what they think will be in the overall interest of the smooth running of the two chambers of the National Assembly. So if, for example, the Senate President wakes up tomorrow and decided that he believes that based on the promises that we have made as a political party to certain group of people, let's say women, he is of the opinion that there should be a special committee that will look at how women get married or how they do that is his own discretion. And provided he brings that to the floor of the Senate or the bodies of principal officer and is approved, it is deemed to have been in conformity with the Constitution. All you need, the other one, is to follow the procedure.
Political interests. All right, we'll make progress from that point. Despite the resolution of all these challenges, the moral burden remains on both arms of the National Assembly. Deputy Leader, the Senate President is being tried over corruption allegations. Corruption allegations were leveled against the leadership at the lower chamber also. How is the National Assembly managing this?
Well, you see, I am one of those people who believe in the rule of law. First, maybe by virtue of my profession as a lawyer. We used to have this saying in law, that a believer is entitled to believe even where there is no proof. For example, maybe as a Muslim, I believe that there is God. But I have no proof that God exists. But I'm a believer that he exists. And that determines how I worship my God. A Christian believes that Jesus lives for him and died for him, but he has no proof to show us. But you see, when it comes to law, the law is interested in physical evidence. The reason being that it does not start within the prospect of belief. It is something much more than that, to establish issues of allegations. Any allegation can be leveled against any person. But what is important is that the Constitution, to which we have sworn to uphold, protect, and defend, has said, any person charged with a criminal offense shall be presumed to be innocent until he is proved guilty. So the presumption of innocence, again, has a compelling obligation upon those of us who have sworn on the Constitution to take allegations as mere allegations until they are proved. So as far as we are concerned, we are dealing with an innocent person. We are not the one calling him innocent. It is the Constitution of the Federal Republic of Nigeria that says he is innocent.
But these principles apply in other climes, but they first of all vacate office because of the high premium they place on certain values, such that investigations can be carried out. But it's not the same in Nigeria.
Yes, and I will tell you why. Because of our multicultural, multi-ethnic, and multi-religious context, we have become a unique society. And I have always prided this saying in the dictum of Honorable Justice Nick Itobi in the case of Onaguro versus the State, which I have always quoted and cherished. I think you can find that in part 587 or whatever of Nigerian Weekly Report. And I will quote him. He said, "The Nigerian polity, more than anyone known to me, is one of suspicion and suspect. It is one society where the slightest aberrant conduct of an individual, no matter how malified, is read with so much suspicion. Suspicion is the hobby of an average Nigerian. He does not only vegetate on it, he enjoys it, more especially where the end result is to damage or destroy the character of another person." This is a justice of the Court of Appeal telling you his description of Nigerian society. Now, arising from this description, if you say that for every allegation that is intended to tarnish the image of somebody, he should resign, then it means you are promoting a situation where by the mere expedience of making allegation against a person, he can vacate his office. This is the danger. So in navigating and trying to strike the balance between the two, you must, as a responsible leader, find comfort to err on the side of the Constitution than public opinion. As far as we are concerned, it is better. And that is why the framers of our Constitution will always tell you that these fundamental rights that we call fundamental rights are derivative from the United Nations Human Rights Charter. They are only domesticated for the purpose of making them constitutionally enforceable within the context of Nigerian polity. So I think that it's not easy, to begin to
So if you say that, what you're trying to say in essence, and in line with what the All Progressives Congress believes,
yes,
is that the office is supreme, more sacred than certain values.
No.
You'll have time to respond to that,
okay.
Senator Naala. You're watching Fireworks, and I've been having a very interesting conversation with the Deputy Senate Leader. Let's take a short break. We'll be right back. Thank you for staying tuned to Fireworks. I've been talking with the Deputy Senate Leader, Senator Bala Ibn Naala, representing Kebbi South. Now, is the office of the Senate President, and indeed any exalted office in this country, supreme to certain values? Because I put the same question, well, similarly, in similar fashion, to the chairman of your party, the All Progressives Congress, about why or not they think it is necessary to invite the former president to answer to allegations being leveled against the National Security Advisor over the disbursement of the cash for arms. And he says the office, I'm not quoting him copiously now, is more important, that nothing must be done to bring down that office. So I ask in similar fashion, is the office more exalted than principles that every Nigerian, irrespective of creed, irrespective of belief, should hold dear?
Okay, let me answer this question, maybe basing it from my previous observation of what Nikki Toby have said about the character of a Nigerian situation. Now, like I have always said, we are a unique society. And students of sociology will tell you what they refer to as the concept of cultural relativism and cultural universality. These are the two concepts that give rise to what we call values. Now, the question to ask is that, can we validly say that Nigeria as a country has succeeded in establishing certain values that can clearly be defined and acceptable by the entire population of Nigeria as a concept of universality, universally agreed? The answer is no. What appears reprehensible, for example, in the northern part of the country, may not necessarily make any meaning in the southern part of the country. I don't know whether you get that. So it is that which defines the nature and character of our society. And it is the nature and character of our society that has made it almost practically impossible for us to establish values that we can hold on strongly to say they are bigger and more important than the exalted office that we're talking about.
I'll ask one question before we leave this issue.
Yes.
And I want you to answer yes or no.
No.
Nigerians across board,
yes,
whether they are Igbo, Yoruba, Hausa, Kanuri, whatever, believe it is wrong to take something that belongs to another person.
Oh yes, yes, but wait,
so
let's make progress. This yes and no answer cannot be.
Let's make progress,
yes.
Senator Bala Ibn Naala. Now, what are your thoughts on the delay in the confirmation of the acting CJN?
But it's purely an executive issue. Issue of delay can more conveniently be explained by those whose responsibility it is to make the nomination. We will be in a position to explain any delay that arises from the confirmation, but we will definitely not in a position to explain what explained the delay in the nomination of the Chief Justice of Nigeria.
But you are a stakeholder in the Nigerian dream.
Well, it's stakeholder in relative terms. You see, we unfortunately have a situation where, again, the level of our democratic experience has not succeeded in fully establishing who should be a stakeholder. But by virtue of the position I hold as a deputy Senate leader, if you look at the protocol list of the country, I should be between number 9 and 10.
Good.
But
so,
you see,
is this delay a test of the executive's ethnic bias, as is the debate on the front burner currently in the country?
No.
Is it a test of its ethnic bias?
No. You see, everybody has his thinking about how he believes, rightly or wrongly, that he can run the office that he occupies. Certain considerations that were available to the executive that explain the delay, in quotes, of the nomination of the Chief Justice of Nigeria might not have been available to the National Assembly. And even where they are available, they do not make evident to us because we are not in charge of the nomination. We are only in charge of the confirmation.
Oh, so it's safe for you to hold this position that you hold. You would rather not make your own individual contribution to whether it's a test of the presidency's ethnic bias or not.
Don't forget the fact that I have sworn to uphold, protect, and defend the Constitution. And this same Constitution has clearly defined who exercise what in terms of power. And it has clearly defined the fact that it's the executive that has power to nominate the Chief Justice of Nigeria. So, and I'm not part of the executive. And you have no difficulty in knowing that because you have already said, exactly, yes.
Fantastic. Okay, you quoted Justice Nikki Toby earlier on saying, not copiously now, that the average Nigerian has suspicion as his trade. Now let's apply that to the list of former CJNs and again, compare it with the debate that is ongoing about whether or not the delay is a test of ethnic bias.
I really don't know how you want to put me in a position to explain what ordinarily is not within my personal knowledge. I should be responsible enough to speak about issues that are within my personal knowledge. And I'm telling you, the fact that you yourself have admitted that Bala Allah is the deputy Senate leader as at today has concluded the fact that Bala Allah is not part of the executive.
Very safe and convenient, Senator Na'Allah. No wonder you have remained Deputy Senate Leader. Now, lastly, before we wrap up this session, let's talk about your anti-social media bill. What you were vilified for it in the public vehemently. But let's understand. Let's get a first-hand understanding from the proponent of the bill. What informed your decision? Well,
I have tried my best to restrain myself from giving further explanation as to what you call the social media bill. What Allah knows is Frivolous Petition Prohibition Bill. That was what I tabled before the Senate. And the necessary intendment is to ensure that the complex nature of Nigerian society is not put in danger by those who are incapable of gauging the consequences of their action in writing on Facebook and the rest. People who never knew how this country came about, people who never knew the efforts that was put in the past to bring this country to where it is, and people who should have more stake than those of us who are aged, who are at the verge of leaving the scene, and that is the youth. And I'm happy that as of today, there are more vindications than the vindication I have suffered, in the past.
But Deputy Leader, it depends on the approach to regulation. Well, what do you propose? How do you propose that regulation of the social media be done such that freedom of expression will not be hampered?
If you look at the provision dealing with freedom of information, freedom of expression, you see, it's not an absolute right. And in the entire fundamental human rights that we have in Chapter 4, they are founded on the belief that while you have your right to swing your arm, it stops where by doing so you'll be hitting another person's nose. I want you to understand that. And as far as I'm concerned, what we are saying is that whatever you write should be the truth.
Especially believe that it is as a result of the power of the press that military rule was brought down in this country, that they are safe as long as what they report, what they write about on the social media is the truth.
Let me tell you let me tell you the wisdom of truth. If today as a reporter you publish the truth and the entire machinery of government is set against you, you will go to bed sleeping, peacefully, because you believe that it is in your determination as a good Christian to tell the truth that you reported what you reported, and what you reported is the truth. It doesn't matter what anybody feels about what you have reported. But I'm telling you today, if somebody invites you and say you have done one report that is false, and it can be established that that report is false, the burden you carry as a reporter will not guarantee you going to bed peacefully. So whatever it is, I, Allah, have chosen to remain on the path of truth, and I have no apology, no regret over it. My religion, my upbringing, everything dictates that I should be truthful in what I do. And if anybody if everyone continues to claim to be the religious person that he is in this country, and he is fighting you simply because you have told him to say the truth, then that person, that kind of person should not be taken serious.